this email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Today's guest has spent the last decade doing something I deeply appreciate, having real conversations with people who have led, built, coached, written, competed, and performed at the highest levels. Ryan Hawk is the host of the Learning Leader Show, where he has interviewed more than 630 leaders. Man, that's an aspirational goal, including Jim Collins, Simon Sinek, Adam Grant, Tony Robbins, James Clear, Patrick Lencioni, General Stanley McChrystal, which I love, Admiral William McRaven, Liz Wiseman, Daniel Pink, Seth Godin, and many, many more. He's also a best-selling author, keynote speaker, former college quarterback, and former corporate executive who rose to vice president of sales, leading a $500 million division. His book, Welcome to Management, How to Grow from Top Performer to Excellent Leader, tackles one of the hardest transitions in business, moving from being responsible for your own performance to being responsible for the performance and growth and success of others. Ryan, welcome to the conversation. I'm so looking forward to this.
Hey, man. It's been really cool getting to know you and your story before we even hit record. So I am very curious to see what questions you came up with from reading the latest book. So man, I'm excited to be here with you, man.
Welcome to Management. It's a great book. Highly recommend it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I like to think of everybody who comes on my show as a superhero, and all superheroes have an origin story. So what's yours?
Oh, man. I'm born in Dayton, Ohio, home of the Wright brothers. One of the greatest books ever written, by the way, is called The Wright Brothers by David McCullough. Regardless of where you're from, it would be helpful. And what it talks about is the power of being very, very curious, which is what a skill that I've grown to try to develop even more as I've gotten older. Grew up playing sports. I'm the middle of three boys. And fortunately, my parents are still my heroes to this day. I talk to them and see them all the time. My brothers are as supportive as it gets. They always have been. They always will be. Played football in college. There's a lot there that we can get into if you want. I graduated from Ohio University, played the Arena Football League for a little bit, went up to the CFL in Canada for a little bit, and then the sport retired me when it told me I wasn't good enough anymore, which happens to all of us eventually. And then I got a job working in sales for a company called LexisNexis. Rex Caswell, one of the ultimate dudes of all time, family friend, hired me, gave me a shot, and I worked really, really hard to prove him right because he was really good friends with my dad. That's the only reason I got hired. He was doing my dad a favor. And sometimes when people, they take a shot on you, especially when it's like a family friend, man, there's like nothing more motivating for me than to prove people like that right. And so fortunately that went well, got promoted a few times. And in the process of all of that, after getting my MBA, I needed to be a better leader. I was in a leadership role, and I thought about going back to school and even getting like a PhD or something in leadership management. But it took me 6 years to get my MBA. It was a pain. I needed to get tutors. It was really, really hard. And instead of going back to kind of get more formal education and doing it the way that they told me I had to do it, which is take these classes at this time, at this place in order to get this certification, I thought, is there a way I can create my own form of a leadership PhD program? And that's when I launched the Learning Leader Show, which is my podcast, 11 years now, just under 700 episodes we've released. And to me, it's like the coolest gig in the world. You get to speak with, much like you're getting to do, right? Speak with brilliant people who are thoughtful, kind, caring, and curious. And I can ask them literally whatever I want and then share all of those learnings with the world. And it's been, I could have never imagined the kind of life it would create for me by doing that. But I'm just trying to enjoy the good old days, which are right now. And yeah, man, I appreciate you showing an interest and being curious about me and the stuff that I do.
No, I'm really happy to have you on, and can't wait to listen to more episodes on your podcast because a lot of the people are just amazing. I can't wait to listen. So
yeah,
early in the book, you talk about that because you've been promoted, you're now the person that your employees are complaining about to their friends and family. And when I read that, there's a Tim McGraw song that popped into my head called "Everybody Hates Me." And for those of you that don't like country music, it's an older country song, but it starts off and it says, "Well, Joe got a promotion. He's up there on top. Everybody was cheering him on. He deserves everything he's got. Guess who's the new talk of the town? The new SOB, the one everybody loves cutting down. Man, it's a sight to see. So when you get promoted, people start poking fun at you and making, because now you're in a different position, right? You have different responsibility, and Ryan, the peer, is not the same person as Ryan, the boss, right? Because you have different objectives, you have different pressures. So it's very different. And so that's why I'm glad you have this book, because it should help us understand, how do I go from being one of the group to being the leader?
Yeah, I mean, and especially if you're 26, because I was one of, if not the youngest person on the team. And so that was a whole nother part of that promotion that was tough. Now it helped the credibility of being the highest performer in the building, and had done that for a couple of years. But it's still a tough gig when you go from being teammates one day and then literally the next day, right, you're their boss.
Yeah.
And doing everything you can to build a different type of a relationship, but to ensure that you're going to build upon all the good things that you'd already done, right? You're not trying to just flip the table upside down. You're going to build on the good things that are already happening, but then try to address some of the problems or the issues that are happening within the team. And so, like most of us, there's not a ton of training for that. At least I didn't have any. Just some conversations. And so I remember when I called my dad complaining about all of these issues, and that's when he said, "Welcome to management. This is why you exist. This is why a sales manager in your case exists, because of all of these issues. Be grateful for them. If they didn't exist, they wouldn't need you." So it really was a mindset shift of, hey, be grateful for all of the messiness that this job entails. And it's your job to do everything you can to help make the lives better of the people that you're serving. And so I've tried my best to do that. I messed up a ton, and that's ultimately why that book, Welcome to Management, got written, because ultimately what I want to happen is every person in the world who gets promoted from being an individual contributor to being a frontline manager, I hope they get a handshake, a pat on the back, and then the VP hands them that book. That's my hope. That's what I was thinking as I was writing it, because I messed up so much stuff. My hope is that others don't have to mess up the same way that I did.
No, that's great. And part one of the book is actually called Lead Yourself. And you believe you can't lead anyone without leading yourself first. So why is that?
Well, the fun part about that is, like, it's a never-ending game. It's similar. There's a lot of analogies, right? Put on your seatbelt first. The oxygen mask in the airplane, right? You got to put that on before you put somebody else's on. I think all those are analogies are said because they're true. But it's really, really hard. It's just like a relationship, like a marriage. If you don't have yourself right and focused on you and understanding who you are and the way you love and receive love and your values, I think it's really, really hard to properly love somebody else. And management leadership is very, very similar. If you don't have yourself dialed in, your foundations, your core principles and values and purpose and critical behaviors that make all of those things true, it's just really tough to lead somebody else. You got to go first. As the leader, you have to show the way. You got to be willing to do all of the stuff that you're asking others to do. And so the lead yourself part of leadership never, ever ends. It's a never arrived, always becoming type mindset. I think you need, at least the great ones, I think that's what they have as they approach that leading yourself part. It's not like you can skip over it, or you can say, oh, no, I'm good. It's like, well, nobody's ever has an arrival moment. So it's really about you understanding that that's a constant work in progress.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because you also have you cite research in the book where most people, I think it's like 95%, think they're self-aware.
Tasha Urich,
it's actually only like 10 or 15%. So
yeah,
because even in the book you say, don't skip right to the third section. You know, maybe you're not as great as you think you are. Maybe read the first section too, which is all about yourself. So why is self-awareness so important, and what's the first step someone can take to close that gap?
Have you ever worked for somebody who doesn't have self-awareness?
Fortunately, yes.
We all have, right? How does that go?
Painful for the individual, not so much for them.
It's terrible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have a thought bubble that immediately came into my mind, of the person who has like zero self-awareness, and how painful that was for all of us that were below, and that was a high level person. It's critical, I think, to develop the skill, because so many of us think that we have it, and most of us don't. It's something I have like a lot of productive paranoia about, to use a great by choice Jim Collins term. I think one of the ways I try to solve that is we all need truth tellers in our lives. We need people that are very, very competent and that care a lot about us and are willing to do the hard thing, which is to tell us the truth. And so in my case, that's a combination of family, friends, and then the coaches that work on my learning leader team. And I openly will tell them all, here's one of my biggest fears in life. It literally is one of my biggest fears, is that I become an unaware person, especially when it comes to this self-awareness thing. And so I'm telling you, you got to tell me when I mess that thing up. You got to tell me when I'm showing a lack of awareness. You got to tell me when I mess up. And then I make sure that I am prepared to handle the tough feedback when it comes. Because if they then give me the tough feedback and I immediately get defensive or explain it away or use excuses as to why maybe they're wrong or why there's a reason for me to mess that thing up, they'll stop giving me the feedback and stop telling me the truth, because I'm proving to them that I can't handle it. So you got to have the truth tellers in your life. And when they give it to you, the number one thing to say to them is, thank you. Thank you. It doesn't mean they're right all the time, because you'll get feedback at times and it's not correct. But be grateful, say thank you. Then you can think about it. You could journal on it. You could have further conversations afterwards. But the first thing you got to say when people give you tough feedback is thank you.
And it's hard, right? It's hard to hear
Very
that,
hard.
because it comes across as criticism, and it shouldn't be. But I think you talk in the book about it's an act of love, really. It's they're being kind to you and showing you they care about you.
It's one of the most unselfish things other people can do for you, is to give you genuine, honest feedback out of a place of love, not someone who's jealous or envious of you. That's very different, because sometimes you can receive some feedback that might not only not be helpful, but could be hurtful if it comes from the wrong place. But if you're talking people who genuinely love and care for you, and they're willing to tell you the truth, that's one of the most unselfish things somebody can do. Because if they were choosing their own selfishness, they would probably stay quiet, because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to potentially harm the relationship by telling you something that could be painful. But they're choosing their own comfort over the betterment of you if they're not telling you. But if they're willing to tell you, they're choosing to be uncomfortable with the intention of helping you. And to me, like, those people are gold. I love them. I tell them I love them. I'm grateful for them. And I always want them in my life, because, again, one of my biggest fears is to become an unaware person.
I wish everybody felt that way. So
I still mess it up all the time, by the way. I do try to be
perfect.
good, though, when I get feedback, to not mess that part up, because if you mess that part up, you're training others to not give you feedback. So I think that's the real important part, that for example, like I was giving a speech and I had two of my coaches in the audience, and I said, guys, just tear me apart. Like, I need to know what happens or whatever. And they know that. And yet they're still, like, you could tell, a little bit nervous or whatever. And they said, look, dude, the first 15 minutes, you spoke so fast, nobody could understand, nobody could keep up, nobody could take notes. You hammered the slides. Maybe you were nervous or whatever. And so my response was, thank you. And then I said, you're right. I could feel the speed. And they were right. I watched the film afterwards. And so when you get that feedback and you have people willing to give it to you, again, it's gold. I love those people.
Selfishly, how do you stop that? Because I have a habit of talking too fast as well.
Deep breaths. I remember it when I'm going, because usually it happens to me at the beginning when maybe it's nerves, but it's that anticipatory feeling of the game's about to start, and you kind of feel that in your body and you're juiced up. And so you just go a little fast. And so usually it gets better over time, but I've tried to get better to maybe pose a question to start, or to not feel like I'm teaching right away. Maybe it's a story that involves pacing and timing and stopping and using silence. that's a way to like a tool or tools I've used to try to slow down at the beginning of speeches. Because once I get into it, and I watch the film and sit with coaches, I usually get better, and then make it much more interactive too. If I make it interactive, it helps me slow down because I'm posing questions. I'm responding to what they're saying in the audience. So I'm more of a facilitator and less of a keynote in those moments. And when I do that, that seems to help too.
That's good advice. We were talking about your show earlier, the Learning Leader Show, and you kind of talked about it being a virtual PhD program because you didn't want to go back to school and get one. What is interviewing the almost 700 people that you've done so far, what has that taught you over and above what you would have gone and gotten at traditional management classes?
So I'm fascinated by people and their stories, and every person has such a unique and interesting story. I've also learned, I've learned how I both give and receive love through the last 11 years doing this. If somebody is curious about me, that is the number one way they can show me love. And I do the same for others, especially on the show. It has made me a much, much more curious person, which I think is an absolute superpower. If you show up at the world with a wonder and a curiosity about people, their stories, about ideas, about just the things that are happening, you can learn so much if you show up, in your case, right, with a ton of questions, and then you listen deeply, like actually listen, and then you ask follow-up questions, and you do that in your everyday life. It becomes contagious. And so for me, it's just changed. That's the one thing. If you ask my wife, what's the number one thing that's changed over the past 11 years from doing 700 of these, that's what she'll say. Just an intense curiosity, not just on the show, but all the time, at the pool, especially on the sidelines at soccer games, talking to other parents when we're watching our daughters play, whatever it may be, of just this intense curiosity about people, their stories, their lives. And so that, I think, is an ultimate way to show somebody love, is to be actually and genuinely interested in them and asking them questions. You see people light up when they get to tell their story and when they get to talk about what they're interested in. And when you show that you actually care, that's probably like the number one thing that I've picked up over the past 11 years doing this with having the conversations with such brilliant people.
So I think the answer to my next question was kind of buried in there, but you were talking about curiosity, and my next question was going to be, why is curiosity so important for a new manager? But it sounds like you're trying to make it a connection, right?
Well, I mean, think about like your favorite boss. Okay, we do this favorite boss, like best boss, worst boss exercise, and we just put a line down the sheet of paper, and you kind of write on both sides. Like, think about your favorite boss, think about your worst boss, and you just write the attributes of them. One of the top things that will come up on that favorite boss side is they care. They actually care about me. Well, how do you show somebody love, or how do you show somebody that you care about them? You ask them about them. And so one of the first things we did, and I probably was told this by a mentor, I don't remember, but is I do a getting to know you exercise with every single person that has ever worked for me. And that's just a series of questions that they write their answers to, and it has nothing really to do with their working stuff or career. It's all about them as a person, the people that they love, the important people in their lives, the things they're interested in. And then I do one, and then we trade, and then we have a 90-minute conversation about that exercise. And so that's like the foundation of where the relationship starts with every single person that I work with. And then we work off of that, and then I have all of that electronically saved. And then I will continually add to it as we have more conversations that are beyond just work stuff. Certainly we have work conversations, you have to, but I try to learn about them as people and the people that love them. And then that can manifest that way. You can show more love out of that from of gift giving, of mentioning the names of important people. Like one of my favorite bosses is named Scott Schlesner. And this is such a small thing. We would go out to dinner when we're both on the road or do things like that. And I know Scott would always bring get a nice bottle of wine, and he'd look at me in the eyes and he'd go, "How's Miranda doing?" Like, just super curious, super genuine. He used her name, not "How's your wife?" or "How's it going?" or "How was your weekend?" "How's Miranda doing?" And then he'd remember something specific I said about her from the time before that she's into or excited about, or maybe one of our kids. And and like that seems so basic and so little, but like I still remember, and I haven't worked for him in a long time. And so I think just stuff like that, showing you care, showing you remember the people that they loved, you remember their names, like all of that stuff plays a role when you're trying to lead somebody and trying to show them how much you care for them. And so I try to do things like that because I know how it feels when you're on the other side of it.
Knowing somebody's name and saying it is so powerful. It's when I teach classes, there might be 40 or 50 people in the room. And usually I have a gift that by lunch, I can know everybody's first name.
50 people?
Yeah.
What?
I can learn 50
How?
by lunch. It's funny. Half the people in the room, they tell me their name. They just look like that person to me. It's just, okay, you look like a Ryan.
So let's say they're like, I'm John, Susie, Amanda, Nick. Do you have to like, they say it and you repeat their name and look at them in the eye, or like, what do you do?
It's not a mnemonic. Basically, I just write their name down on a seating chart. And then, like I said, half the people look like their name to me, so that I just recognize them right away. I can see them out in the hallway. I can see them at dinner. The other half, when they're doing an exercise, I will memorize who they are. But then I can throw the seating chart away, and I have it. It's in short-term memory. Like a week later, I wouldn't remember everybody's name, but for that period. And it's amazing how engaged people get when you say, you don't have to look at them and go, remind me your name. You'd say, Joe. Think about this.
Yeah, man, that's a crazy skill. That's an awesome skill.
The power of the name it is very powerful if you can call people by name, which you were talking about with your wife's name, right? How important that was to you.
Yeah, that's big. That's awesome. I need to be better about that. I might need some tips more as we go. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
It's all good, man. So you also talk in the book about Charlie Munger. If those who don't know, that's Berkshire Hathaway fame. He's the other half of the person everybody, of course, knows, Warren Buffett. And you were talking about, I think he actually was referring to Warren Buffett when he says he's a learning machine because he's always reading and learning. And then you kind of describe in the book thoughtfulness and intentionality as kind of being the twin pistons of that machine. In fact, you say that these are two commonalities you see in all high-performing leaders. So how can a busy manager make those part of their daily reality?
Yeah, being thoughtful and intentional. When I look at sustainable excellence, people who have sustained excellence over an extended period of time, they are not wanderers. They don't just wander around crossing their fingers, hoping that things work out. They're very thoughtful and reflective about what they've done, what others have done, what they're learning, how they're trying to improve, and then super intentional when they make decisions and about what they choose to do every day. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, but in my experience, I've seen the ones who are crushing it over a long period of time. Yeah, you talk about Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, super thoughtful, and then very, very intentional, in their cases, maybe when buying or investing in a company. They're doing their diligence, they're doing their work, and then they commit. And to me, I think that's really important, that you have an idea of who you are, what you're about, why you do what you do. When things are going well, so this is an example. So I used to work in sales when I was in corporate America for 12 years. And whenever like a VP of sales, I'd be like, hey, how did the year go? Or how did the quarter go? Or how is it going? And they'd say, we finished up 22%. Our goal was to grow 12% year over year. So we crushed it. We had a big year. And the natural question I'd always ask is, awesome, what'd you do? Why?
Yeah.
And so the difference between when a VP of sales or whoever would have this pretty specific, hey, we did this, this, and this, and because of that, this, and this, and like the ones who had a deep understanding of why the year went really well, and they could talk about the market conditions and the competition and then their own process with their people and hiring and training and developing and whatever, their sales process. That VP, I'm like, I'm betting on you to continue. I'm right. Moving my chips in on you. Sometimes though, you get that person, you say, what, yeah, awesome. What'd you do? Why? What happened? Because I'm genuinely curious because I want to learn. I want to have that job someday. I want to get good, whatever. And they'd say, well, we worked really hard, man, and things kind of fell our way. And I was like, all right, I'm not betting on that guy. And so that's because that person's not thoughtful and intentional. That person is just kind of like wandering through life, hoping for the best. And sometimes it works, like whatever. And I don't, though, that's not me. That's not what I'm trying to do. Like, if things are going well, I want to know why. And if things are going bad, I want to know why. I want to be thoughtful about it so that when I move forward and make a decision of what we're going to do moving forward, it's going to be with intention and purpose. And the ones who are crushing it over time, that's what they do, versus the ones who get lucky every once in a while.
Yeah, you talk in the book about how a lot of us will do the postmortems on what went wrong, but we need to be talking about why did it go right?
Absolutely.
For no other reason we can replicate it.
Yeah. We need both, right? We need both. The military is great at after action reviews on every single mission, right? And I've been super fortunate to have these special forces American heroes on my podcast, the ones who are 4-star generals and admirals and leaders, as well as the ones who are the operators and the SEALs doing the work. And that's like one of the or like the fighter pilots, right? They do them too. They all do them. And that's one of the biggest things is no matter what happens on the mission, even if it went literally perfect, you're doing an after action review. And if it goes bad, you're doing an after action review. Like that part of the military should absolutely apply at work all the time. You need to have like a see it, say it mentality, meaning we saw something that happened and we said it. We talked about it immediately. This happens in sports really well too, where you get immediate feedback from really good coaches on every single rep. And I think that in corporate America, we could be better about this. Instead of doing it once or twice a year, we need to be doing it once or twice an hour. And I think the great ones, I think they're really good at that. And the average ones, they're just sticking to like once or twice a year review thing. And I don't think that's not what that's, if you want to sustain excellence, I don't think that's what you do.
Yeah. One is about learning. One is about checking the box.
Correct.
Did we do it? Yes.
Correct.
You talk in the book about the cycle of learning, and there was learn, test, reflect, and teach. And you say mentors play a big role in the learn cycle. So what makes a good mentor? And then how do I find one?
So the learning part is the fueling your intake engine. So that could come in a variety of things, podcasts, books, TED Talks. One of the best ones, though, as you mentioned, is somebody who's done it in a way that you want to do it, with the character that you want to uphold, right? So that would be a mentor. How do you find a mentor? First, you got to observe the world, be a noticer of people who have done what you want to do, but more importantly, they've done it in a way in which you deeply admire. And then find a way to get them in your life. So let's say you don't know them and you don't know anybody who knows them, so you have to send them a cold email, and you find a way to find their email address, which hopefully you can be resourceful and high agency and you can figure that out. I've had to do a ton of that over the years when you host a podcast. I'm sure you have too. Here's the key, I think, when writing that note, to get very tactical for a second. The word that is most important when it comes to cold outreach is specificity. Be very specific in your praise and very specific in your ask. So what does that mean? If you admire somebody, tell them specifically and as specific as possible what it is you admire about them. For example, Brian Miller, guy I worked for, he was my boss's boss at Lexus many years ago. Brian was the best opener of town halls of anyone I'd ever seen because he always opened with a story. So I wanted Brian in my life more closely than he was. Like he knew of me because I was in his organization, but he was a big shot and I was a middle guy. I wrote Brian a note. Brian, I loved how you opened the last town hall telling that story about Webb Simpson and how Webb Simpson increased his scoring. He's a golfer, right? Years ago, increased his scoring average by 0.4 or whatever from this year to that year by doing this, and this, and working with this coach. That was incredible. I want to learn more specifically about how you find the stories, how you tell the stories, and how you relate them to us. I loved it. Well, now we have a reason to meet. Now we have a reason to talk. The other version of that email to Brian is, Brian, I would love to pick your brain. Can we meet? What do you think has better odds of Brian being like, yeah, dude, this sounds interesting. I would love to talk about the Webb Simpson story and opening up town halls and how I find stories and how I tell them, versus somebody wants to pick my brain, which I don't even know what that means.
Right.
So just be specific when reaching out cold. You're not asking them to be your mentor. You're asking them to have a conversation. And then after the conversation, you write them a very detailed and specific follow-up note of what you learned and what you're going to put into play. And then the next time you want to meet with your mentor again, you write them another specific note about something specifically they did that you admire, and you want to ask them about that thing. And before you know it, right, you may have a mentor for years and years, and you never talked about the fact that they were your mentor. You never asked them to be your mentor. You just asked to talk to them. And I had a guy, Lee Rivas, who was my mentor for 4 years. We never talked about the fact that he was a mentor of mine. I just asked him specific questions, and then we would meet and talk about that question, and they would inevitably lead to a lot of other stuff too. So specificity is the word. I know that's a lot, and I know that's very tactical, but if you put that into play, I am almost going to guarantee it's going to work. If somebody is specific with me when they email me, I'm going to respond, right? And it will stand out in the massive thousands or whatever of the other pick your brain type things. That works most, if not almost all of the time.
So I do know that you mentioned this in the book. Sometimes if you're a younger person and you want to get a mentor, you kind of talk about it needs to be a two-way street, and that person might be thinking, well, what can I possibly offer this person who has all this knowledge? But you think you can't, they actually can add value, right?
Sure. I don't know if you're referring to the specific example again, but in the follow-up email that you send after you've had a meeting with your quote mentor, tell them, this is what I heard you said. This is what I learned. I'm going to make sure it's correct. This is the action I'm going to take. And so what you've done is you've documented their thoughts for them. So that's a service that you've provided them. I asked you before, hey, what notes do you have from the book? It's hard as the author to know what specifically is going to resonate with a smart, thoughtful person. I would like to know. Can you send those to me? That's how you could do a service for me, is that you help me understand what resonates. So anyway, you're doing that for your mentor. You're documenting their thoughts, their knowledge. They may even fix it. I've had Lee actually, in fact, he would occasionally say, no, you heard that wrong. I actually said it this way. Great. Thank you. Now I got clarification. But anyway, this is what I heard you say. This is the action I'm going to take. Oh, by the way, and at the end of the email, I know you mentor more than just me, or I know you talk with people like me that you try to help because you're a good person. Please feel free to click forward on this email to anybody that you think it could help. And so now all of a sudden you've become a multiplier. You've multiplied their thinking because they can click forward, and I've had people click forward to somebody else, and then that person see my email address and actually reach out to me. And now I've multiplied my relationships because I'm in touch, or I'm becoming friends with somebody else that mentor also mentors. And so it's cool when that happens. Like, that's not the intent. Like, I'm not trying to build out my network, but it could be a secondary effect of that too. So that is a way you could add value to a mentor's life. If you're the mentee and you think, I have nothing to add, I'm too young, I don't have enough experience, whatever, what can I do? Well, you can document their thoughts, and you could help them share that with other people too. And that's a big way you could become a multiplier and add value to their life.
You also talk about coaches. So what's the difference between a mentor and a coach?
Like, I think coaching could be specifically for like in the moment things. You said this, instead of saying that, say this. In football, you stepped at this angle, you need to step at that angle. You were reading the safety and moving with your eyes that way. You actually should have been reading that. That's specific in the moment. You did this, consider doing it that way. Whereas a mentor is somebody who may be more high level overall with your career or bigger strength. So it's almost like micro and macro. Like, the coach gets into the micro stuff that you're doing at all the time, specifics of this is what you did, maybe try it this way, or in fact, this is what you did, you should do it that way. That's, I think, the biggest difference for me.
Okay. One of the things I always love to learn, which is why I do this, but I also found it interesting that you say practice actually needs feedback if you want it to be effective. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I mean, this is for a sports thing. So every single repetition of my life has, starting in high school, was filmed in practice and certainly games. But every rep, so in individual, and team run, and 7-on-7, and then certainly in full team. And so everything is filmed. In every single rep, we were graded a plus, a minus, a double plus, or a double minus. And so we would get scored on how we did that day in practice, and then specifics around each of those repetitions. And so I want feedback. I'm used to getting it. If I'm not getting it, I feel a little empty. Like, what happened? Like, how do I know if I'm doing a good job or not? And so I just think feedback is so critical, and the best organizations, the best teams, the best cultures, like read Culture Code by Dan Coyle, they're just feedback machines, and it's happening in real time. Again, a Garen Stokes, one of my coaches, a see it, say it mentality when it comes to feedback. If you see it, say it. That means if they did it awesome and they met the standard and it was great, see it, say it. If they were underperforming and they didn't meet the standard, see it, say it. I just like, the high performance organizations, the great teams, that they have that mentality.
Yeah, you started off with the sports, but I mean, you also talked earlier about it was also in your speaking, right? You record
Absolutely.
it, you get feedback. I'm thinking if you're a musician and you're learning how to play an instrument, you get feedback on what they're doing wrong, what the fingering is, or whatever those things are. So it's not just sports for
everything.
Sure.
Everything. I mean, sports is an easy one, but as far as like an example to use, but yeah, in a high performing sales organization, constant feedback. As a manager, we'd sit in the cubicle, or my manager would sit with me in my cubicle and listen to my calls. And you're getting real time after every single call. You debrief. You know, if it was a call of any substance, right? You're having an immediate debrief in coaching, and like that's really important as a manager to be good at that and to be specific and to help them. Because we've also probably all had the manager who sat with us and listened, and then they gave feedback, and you're like, what? Like they don't know what they're talking about. That's why that's an important job, but it's really important to like just have that be part of your ethos. This see it, say it. We're going to be constantly getting feedback.
Another thing I found interesting was you connect physical self-discipline, nutrition, exercise, sleep to leadership effectiveness. And, we certainly talk about on the inside. Now it's kind of the outside. Why does physical side of leadership matter so much?
Do you mean like physically being in shape and all of that?
Yeah, you talk about it in the book.
I mean, you get one body, you have one thing. A healthy person has a million wishes. A sick person has one. And so think about that. Like, I want to be proactive. I want to go on offense. I want to punish my body physically every single morning. I do that for a couple of reasons. One, because I want to do my best to make the most of this incredible thing I've been given, right? A healthy body and mind. And I want to maintain that and grow that and make it better. Also, pushing myself physically creates evidence for myself that I can do hard things. And I think that evidence of doing the hard thing is very portable. I can take that and it applies to other areas of my life. Oh God, I got to have a tough conversation with this person and they don't typically handle that well. Well, I'm used to doing hard things. I do hard things every morning. I can do this hard thing too. It's a portable lesson. I can use the confidence I've built from that over here. And if you're not used to doing hard things, if you're not used to pushing yourself beyond where you're comfortable, it's way harder than to go have that tough conversation or to do whatever the other hard thing is. So I just want to get in the mentality of saying I regularly do hard things. I'm regularly creating evidence for myself that I can do hard things. So when whatever the next hard thing is that comes up, I'm going to go attack it more so than if I'm like avoiding the hard things, because then when they pop up, I'm not going to be as prepared to handle them well.
It's a good point. It kind of reminds me of I think it's a Chinese saying that man spends his youth chasing money and his money chasing youth when he gets older. So, it's kind of like what you were saying about a healthy man has 100 wishes and a sick man has one. So
I remember I thought of that quote when I was sick a few weeks ago, and I thought, like, I don't want anything else. I literally want nothing else except for this headache and body ache and nausea. I just want it to go away. I will give everything. You know how I feel. Like there's you like remove all else in life and just I just want that to go away. It's crazy, but that's how it works.
Well, that concludes part one of my conversation with Ryan Hawk, former college quarterback, host of the Learning Leader Show, and author of Welcome to Management. Coming up in part two, Ryan talks about the role of healthy competition on a team and how he had to adjust his competitive mindset to succeed in the corporate world.
Competitive cultures are okay. You don't want to be toxic competition. You want to honor people who are living the values that you've set, not just the performance. I think that's important. Yeah, but I came from a world that was very black and white and very zero-sum. As a quarterback, only one guy gets to play. And for me to win, that means you lose. And if you win, that means I lose. It took me time to grow out of that, to understand this world of abundance, to understand that, like, I was a hoarder of information of what I was doing when I was selling a lot and doing really well initially. because like I had to grow out of this zero-sum black and white type of a world. And I had, a great mentor and leader named Rex Caswell, who's still a great mentor and leader for me, tell me, hey, dude, it's not going to hurt you by helping other people or by sharing what you're doing. In fact, you've told me you want to be a manager. You're definitely not going to be a manager by keeping all of this stuff to yourself. You got to be a good teammate. You got to be a good team player. You got to try to help other people. And what happens is like creates like a really cool flywheel of information sharing when you're around other high performers and you're all trying to help each other get a little bit better.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation. To find out more about Clint, go to clintonmpaget.com and pick up Clint's book, How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment, at Amazon. The Conversation with Clinton M. Paget is a production of Forbes Books.